Hello, mamas, and welcome back to another amazing episode of the Mama Work It podcast. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Marissa Lonick, in case you're new in town, and I'm the founder of Mama Work It and a working mom of 4 kids. So I am so excited today to introduce you to our awesome guest, Nichole Howard. Nichole is a published photographer and founder of a personal branding photography business. What started as a side gig became a full-time 6-figure business in under 2 years. She works with clients she adores, and best of all, she has built a schedule that supports her life and allows her work-life balance she used to just dream of. She loves helping others do the same. Nichole has a master's in strategic communications. She's a certified project manager. She's passionate about achieving a flow state and living life on her own terms. Amen. At present, she lives with her partner, her beloved pup, outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Nichole, I'm just so excited you're here. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to dive into all your tips, your personal branding knowledge, because this is something that no matter what career you have right now, it is never a wasted effort to be maximizing your personal brand. So just thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. And that was I loved hearing you say those words because it's like very validating to hear them because you write them and you say them yourself, but hearing somebody else say them it really like touched my heart a little bit. So thank you
Oh,
so much
you
for the
are
beautiful
so
introduction.
welcome. Yes, I totally know the feeling like when someone else talks about you in that way, it's like way
Mhm.
better than when you're sitting in front of your laptop writing your bio.
Yes,
100%.
like when you hear it, you really hear it, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Wow, I really did that." Like, and I think sometimes there's so much motion, and we're always constantly going and taking on the next thing, or just moving and shaking. You're like, "Wait, no, I did it. I did that." That just felt really
Yes, you
good. So
deserve
thank
all the
you.
accolades, all the praise. Okay.
Thank you.
Nichole, I would love to hear just more about your journey. Our guests are always interested, just kind of what's your background? What led you to this place? I mean, you were a project manager. Now you're a photographer. Big leap, big change. Tell us about how that happened.
It's such an interesting journey. I've always said nothing is linear in life. I've always been somebody who has done a lot of different things. My dad always used to joke that I'm a juggler because I always had my hand in a bunch of different stuff growing up. And I feel like that was kind of how this happened too. I was actually gifted a camera for my 30th birthday. And I had always wanted a DSLR. That's a fancy name for the camera, but I had always wanted it. It was something that I was really curious about. And so I was gifted this camera after, completing my master's program in strategic communications. And I was working for a healthcare institution at the time. And I was kind of going down this project management path, in my career. And I started getting really curious about like how I could just learn more about photography too at the same time. And so the juggling began there. And I kind of just kept being curious. And the more that I dove into the photography world with, just this one, like camera I had like 2 lenses. So it really wasn't anything crazy and no lighting and no knowledge whatsoever of really like how to use it. I had to teach myself and find mentors and take online classes and really just get out and do it. And the more I did that, I was like, wow, I really love this. So it kind of just built on the side as I was also building up my project management career. So while I was doing this, I also got certified in project management. So again, more juggling, which we all do, as I'm sure as moms, right? Like I will learn very soon, but I feel like that kind of like really struck that match in me of like, oh, I can want something more. I can want something different than this traditional path that I was kind of following, even though that wasn't linear either. And I kind of stumbled my way into project management just by being good at a lot of different things like organization and working with others and communicating and bringing teams together. But I think for me, it just was this evolution and staying curious and then realizing step by step every action I took brought me closer to this feeling I wanted to have, which was really a feeling of flow, of feeling energized, feeling free, feeling like I had the power to really make a difference in my own life in a way that was outside of what I'd seen my parents do and really what I've seen a lot of my friends do. So I think that was kind of what photography gave me. And so by the time I took the jump to full time 2 years ago, I had already built such a foundation underneath that. I think it really helped me make the leap and kind of get to where I am today. And I think all the other stuff was necessary. So the project management helps me organize myself in my business, and it helps me educate my clients on how to, because I work with a lot of creatives too, on how they can stay organized and prioritize and all of those really important things that we need to do that sometimes don't feel so great. And yeah, my communication skills, I mean, that I learned so much about personal branding and branding in general and reputation management and identity all through my master's program. And so it all kind of came together in a way that I could never have anticipated. So, yeah, that's kind of the nonlinear way that I got here.
I love that. I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing it. I want to touch upon something you said multiple times as you shared this with us, and that's the word curious. And if it's okay, I want to share real quick. When I was in the corporate world, we had this phenomenal guest speaker come to one of our conferences once. Her name was Caroline, and she taught us about being curious, not critical. Now, she was teaching us
Mm.
this in regards to like customer experience and leadership and things that we were doing at work. But when you said that word repeatedly in your story, it made me think how much this particular nuance could be applied even to your own journey. Like if you had been
Hmm.
critical instead of curious, you would have never given yourself the opportunity to learn all these new skills with the camera. You would have, I'm not good at this, and you would have put it down. Or you would have been like, I'm a project manager. This is not my identity. You would have been critical of that and you would have put it down and you wouldn't have gone on this journey and this path. But instead, you chose to be curious and it opened up so many doors for you. And so I just thought of that as you were saying it. And I thought it was a really interesting perspective of looking at it this way because I never have. I've always thought about it more from like a leadership or like customer experience standpoint because that's where I learned it. But it makes so much sense in this facet of life too.
I love that you caught that because that word was very intentional.
Yes.
One of the things that I noticed in my journey was that staying open, staying curious, not listening to the imposter syndrome. And there is, right? I mean, it took me a long time to call myself a photographer. Like that, I remember the first time I said it when I was putting it out there online, like that process, like there is so much criticism that comes up in that, the inner critic, right? And the outer critics that I fear that often sometimes aren't even there, but you fear that they're going to judge me. They're going to say something about me. Who does she think she is? But I just kept coming back to the fact that like, but when I do this, I feel really good. So it was like staying curious with like how I can create that feeling for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you caught that because that was something that I think has helped me be really intentional how I've designed my life so far. And it's kind of how I've even grown other things in my business too, like my podcast and other things. Just staying curious.
Love
How
it.
does it feel? Do I still want to do
Love
it?
it.
All of
Love it.
that. Yeah.
Well, as the host of
Yeah.
the show, I'm coming at this from a very curious perspective today, and I'm going to ask you
Love
lots of
it.
curious questions. So, first question for you, for those listening that hear this term thrown around, personal brand, like what exactly is it? Is it your social media page? Is it your personal website? Where do you showcase it? And why is it so important no matter what industry you're in?
That is such a great question, Marissa. So, a personal brand, to take it a step back, let's talk about definitions. There's a lot of definitions for it. The definition that I like to use is really how you are showing up in all those places you mentioned in the way that you want to show up and the way that you want to present yourself to the world. So, it's different from your reputation in the sense that reputation is what other people think of you, but that is formed from what you do with your personal brand. So, for example, today I'm not showing up with any makeup. And I know we're on video, and I was like, I thought about that a little bit before we got on camera, and I was like, you know what, but I want to be authentic today. I'm just going to show up as I am. And that's just where I'm at. And I'm also pregnant. We've talked about this a little bit. And so I'm shifting a little bit in my identity and who I am and how I show up. And that's all part of my personal brand. So images you take, words you say, how you show up. Like, are you enthusiastic? Are you a little more serious? Are you somebody who's curious? Are you somebody who's critical? All of that plays into your personal brand and how others perceive you and create your reputation.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that resonate? Like, any questions about that? Because I know sometimes like it is kind of a loaded topic. So
It
happy
is,
to
but
dive
yeah,
into
I mean,
more.
essentially it's how you're showing up, right? How you're showing up day in
Mm-hmm.
and day out. And whether that's showing up on social media, showing up face to face with people, showing up in your email tone, showing up for podcast interviews, just how that's what
Exactly.
I'm gathering from what you're saying.
Yep. It's the feeling people get to when they're with you from how you're showing up. And it's that intentionality. So for me, one of my brand values is enthusiasm. And so for me, when I show up to a shoot, I want people to feel like I'm excited to be there with them. Other photographers may not have that, and they may show up very, very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me, though, is part of my personal brand, because for me, it matters that people know that I care, that I'm excited to be there, and I want them to feel that. And so it can be like something as simple as that too, like your brand values and your ethos, your mission,
Mm-hmm.
all of it kind of goes into it.
Yeah. And I think it's worth mentioning too, like your personal brand isn't for everyone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you're not here
Yes.
to please everyone out there. Like Marie Forleo says, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody. Like, you're
Yes. Yes.
enthusiastic. That's your vibe. Somebody who
Exactly.
likes that is going to work with you and enjoy it. Someone who needs more of a
Exactly.
calming force needs somebody else.
Yes. Right. Well, not to say that I'm not calm. I would say somebody who wants more of a serious or maybe a little more reserved, or somebody who's not going to hype them up and make them feel really confident on camera because
Right,
maybe they're already confident
right,
or they
right,
have a
right.
different energy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
Totally.
totally. I don't mean you're
Exactly,
like a
Marissa.
neurotic basket case or anything. I just,
Thank you. I also want to specify that. I was like, let's just be clear.
you know what I mean? But like somebody enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic, not neurotic.
Exactly. Okay. So, professional photographer, gotta ask, like, why is it so important to have a professional headshot? Can you share some tips? Like, besides that, like, what should you wear? What kind of makeup should you do? How should you pose? Like, give us some pointers here. And also, like, why even invest in this?
Yeah. So I think that question feels very big. So I'm just going to break it
Break it
down.
down.
So you want to know why to do it, and then also how to do it, right? Like how to prep yourself in advance, how to know that you're going to get your values worth, all of that.
Yes.
So I would say, actually, if you own a business, or even if you're somebody who has a really big career, I mean, it's really worth having and investing in at least one photo of yourself that you can feel confident putting out there, that you feel like represents who you are and where you are in this moment. I've had so many people come to me and just say, just the experience of doing it build up my confidence to go and be a speaker for this event or put myself in the ring for this opportunity, because I now see myself the way that I feel how I am in the inside on the outside. So, like, just that transformation right there is really, really powerful. And some of it is simply mindset, right? So, like, sometimes we need to see ourselves as the person we want to be before we can actually do some of the stuff that we want to do. And so that can be a really great thing to do in order to do that, like a headshot. Or I say a personal branding shoot, which is way more than just a headshot, because we really dive into all the different types of photos you need to really be visible in all the places you need to be visible. But that's like another question too. So from there, I would say to know that you are prepared for your headshot. So for me, I have stylists on my team. I have makeup artists on my team. I have hairstylists on my team. I also do a vision casting session in advance of a shoot to really dive deep to understand the person that I'm working with and get more information about who they are, how they want their photos to look, what they want others to feel. Again, going back to that personal brand, what do you want others to feel when they see your images, right? Because there's ways to design that strategically so that you're getting a photo that's going to represent that. And understanding who do they want to work with, right? So the idea that you're not talking to everybody. Who is your ideal client? Who do you want to work with? So there's things that we can do, especially with personal branding, even taking it beyond just a headshot, and say, okay, let's say you are somebody who loves to travel and you love going to France. Like France is like your key destination. And you want to put that out there. You want to tell that story. All right, cool. I'm going to put a suitcase in your images. We're going to have a little brochure of France in there, like a little booklet maybe. And then you can then share that on social and talk about it. And people are going to resonate with that. The people that you want to talk to, because they get you, they know you, they like you, they trust you. And it starts to build that credibility. It starts to build that identity. And then people start to get that feeling like, oh, I want to work with Jackie because I feel like I can relate to her. And it gives you that authenticity too, that you're being yourself online. And it's all coming from just a photo. So there's a lot that does go into it. I would always recommend, like, if you feel better after a blowout, I know I do, like getting your hair done, taking the time to get your makeup done, you're going to use these images for a really long time. I've had people who work with me in 2019 who are still using their images today. It's 2024. It's 5 years. And so it is an investment, but it also is something that has longevity and it can be evergreen and it can be something that you're using in multiple ways to show up online, to be very visible. And again, make it really simple for yourself too in the long run. So then you're not trying to just create the wheel yourself, trying to take a selfie in your bathroom or like right in front of your window on your iPhone to try and get the right angle. Like you're hiring an expert who knows what they're doing to make you look your best. And so that's really like a huge value too. Like you're probably going to waste more time trying to do it yourself than you would just investing the time and the money into hiring an expert to do it, just like with anything else.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, professional. And I think it's also worth saying, like, even if you're not in business, this could be
Mm-hmm.
elevating your career. Like, think about if that's the
Yep.
image people are seeing on your LinkedIn profile, it's kind of like dress for the job you want. put
Yeah,
put the
exactly.
image for the job you're applying to, right? Of like showcase yourself already sort of in that role so that the visual's there to begin with. Like you're putting your best foot forward. It's probably the first place they're going to get a visual image of you before meeting you on an interview. So it's just
It's your first impression.
exactly.
It's your first impression, right? It's the first thing. Yeah, exactly. On your Instagram, your LinkedIn, Facebook. Like I always joke that I see some people put like their wedding photos up there with them in like a veil. And I'm like, and that's beautiful, right? But not necessarily professional. It's not necessarily like if you are looking to apply to be an executive vice president somewhere and your headshot is a photo of you at your wedding, it doesn't really align, right? Necessarily, unless you are applying to be maybe an event planner for weddings or something for like an
I
organization
know
like
weddings.
that. Like
I've
it
been to
doesn't
one,
align.
my own.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
Yeah. What about
right.
people that are more like on the private side? What kind of personal
Mm-hmm.
stories or information or photos would you say would be like appropriate for them to be sharing on their personal brand? Like, I know it's good to get outside your comfort zone, but there's also a line there of like, well, I like to keep some things private too.
I love this topic. I actually just did a post on LinkedIn about this topic and it got so much traction because I think a lot of people also feel very passionately about what they should and shouldn't share. And you're right. It's good to get out of your comfort zone, but also you don't have to share anything you don't want to share online. I always tell my clients, like, if you don't feel comfortable talking about it, you probably shouldn't yet. And also, there's actually like I have think I have a blog post about this. I can link out, but there are like 5 things that you should check on before you start to post it online.
Ooh, I
And
love that.
so, yeah, so I would say of those that I can share right now, one, if it's not healed, don't share it. So, for
Mm.
example, I didn't feel comfortable sharing about my divorce when I was going through it. So, that's been about 3 years now. I'm in a brand new relationship. I love my partner. I feel comfortable sharing about that now. So I can. It's not healed, don't share it. If you think somebody else might be personally hurt by it, you want to also think about whether you should share it or not. So this is a really interesting line, but I know it's something that I think about in advance, because you have to think about, if you're saying something that isn't necessarily yours to share, that you want to think about, like, should you share it? Do you need permission to share it? Things like that. So that's another thing to check off. If it's for privacy of your own family, so I know a lot of women I work with do not want the faces of their children online.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes total sense. I did a whole brand shoot with a woman who wanted her child involved, but just didn't want her child's face in the photo.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that. We took photos of them backwards, her holding her son this way. This isn't audio, but for those who can not see me, it's like I'm like doing this thing with my hands. You get it? Yeah. So that is another thing too, like thinking about privacy. So yeah, there are definitely some things that if you don't feel comfortable sharing them, then you don't have to at all. And I don't think you should.
Yeah.
So, but there are some things that you can share about yourself to let other people in, to let people get to know you, that are safe and are even easy. I have a woman who, like, she doesn't shave her armpits, right? She just stopped shaving her armpits. She got a client out of that because they saw her and they were like, "Oh, that resonated with me." She's a coach, and she said that it resonated with me, and I just kind of then looked more into you, and I want to work with you. And she kind of had shared her story, I think, about it on social. And yeah, so it's like these little tiny details about yourself that you may not think have any impact, but could have a large impact, on what people think or say or want to, connect with you on. So, maybe it's maybe having a dog, talking about the fact that you have 4 kids, right? Like, just that in itself can paint a picture, right? Like, there's a lot that goes into that. And sharing that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. I love that advice. If it's not healed, don't share it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I do think people want to share what they're healing in the moment because it's therapeutic for them. But if we're talking more on the
Mm-hmm.
privacy side of the house, I totally, totally get where you're coming from. But yeah, it's really, it's a matter of comfort level. Totally. All right. Last question on the personal brand side. Then we're going to jump over to some fun random ones. How can
Mm-hmm.
you show up consistently when it comes to your personal brand? Like, what advice do you have about that?
Such a great question. So, I actually have a workbook I can share for everybody. It's a free workbook. I'll send the link to you. And it's basically how to show up online for heart-centered entrepreneurs. Because I know that this word consistency gets thrown out there a lot.
I'm a
And
fan.
it can mean a lot of different things to different
It
people.
can.
And also your goals really impact how consistent you need to be and how consistent your results are going to be
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that to start showing up more consistently is take a step back and think about your goals. What do you really want, right? Do you want to be an influencer? Do you want to be a viral sensation, right? If that's the case, and that is a perfectly fine goal, then you're going to need to post a lot. You're going to need to share a lot. You're going to be very visible, right? That's just the reality of that structure. And most people, I would say, I think, and I'm probably, this may be a little biased, kind of look at those metrics of like, oh my God, this post got 1 million hits. It's amazing. But I tend to think that's kind of like a vanity thing, a vanity metric that doesn't actually necessarily give you the outcome you necessarily want. So maybe your goal is to connect more with your audience, but you're not necessarily trying to grow viral. You're just trying to grow a sustainable business. You don't need to share as frequently. Maybe you show up 2 or 3 times a week on your social media. Maybe you show up a couple of times in your stories, right? It doesn't need to be as frequent. And if you're a busy mom, or like a lot of people on this podcast probably listening are, that may fluctuate, right? So your goals change, your priorities change. And if for a week you don't show up on social media, that's okay. It's okay to take breaks. It's also okay to go back to it, right? It doesn't mean like that if I'm not consistent and I don't show up every week for 52 weeks, 2 to 3 times a week, that my business is going to fall apart and I'm not showing up enough online. No, that's not what that means at all. It just means that you have priorities to shift and change, and that's perfectly okay. And just acknowledging that and giving yourself grace around that. So I think consistency is a loaded word, but there's a lot that you can do to really focus on your goals, get clear on what you want, and look at your priorities and kind of show up from there. Another thing you could do, a tool for that, is personal brand photos. Little plug there, but they do really, really help you in those moments where you don't need to create on the spot and trying to figure it out and trying to, oh my God, I need to post. What am I going to post? And what am I going to share? It's like you have a kit, you have a toolkit that's already built for you. So you took that time, you invested in it, and now you can use that for a year or more, depending upon how many photos you got in your package. And you can also repurpose content too, and you can use that in your blogs and all over from LinkedIn. I mean, I know I will post something on LinkedIn. I'll post the same damn thing on Instagram. And you know, it works. It works. So I would say like there's definitely ways you can be consistent. Personal branding photos help you do that for sure. And, you know, also just being clear about your goals first before you start to think about, you know, what it is you need to do and how often you need to show up and how you need to show up and all that.
Totally. Yeah. Such good advice. That clarity is so important before you get all wrapped up in it. 100%.
Exactly.
All right, Nichole, it has come to the time of the show where we are going to jump into our lightning round. We're going to ask you some random personal questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, let's go. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? Calories don't count. I'm so excited to hear this answer since you're pregnant right now. What is it?
Calories don't count. Oh my God. And how about like you wouldn't get constipated?
Yes, that also.
You have no other digestive issues.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. Something related to cheese. I would say
yes.
Like pizza, yeah, like charcuterie boards, things like that. But I can't have as much charcuterie right now, but yes. Cheese, pasteurized cheese I can have.
There you go. Okay. What if you could have any superpower? What would it be?
When I was younger, I used to think I would want to read people's minds because I always wanted to know what they were thinking. Usually my crush at the time. I know, it's so funny. But I think now, like the power to fly or teleport.
Yeah. That is like the number one answer given on the show, actually.
Really?
Yeah, everybody wants to fly. Yeah.
I think it makes sense because I feel like, you know, you can just like, I don't know, imagine like Superman. You just kind of pop off and get to where you're going really quick and without any traffic.
Exactly. No traffic, no waiting.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know how you get your family with you. I mean, that might be hard. Everybody has to fly then.
You drag along.
We all got to fly. Yeah.
Yeah. What is your go-to, like, get it done, motivating song?
Oof, that's a good one. I actually don't know if I have one because I have such a wide variety of genres I listen to. But I mean, this week, I'll give you what I'm listening to this week. Jay-Z's Blueprint. That is one of my all-time favorite albums.
Nice.
And so sometimes it just gets me really grounded and motivated to just do what I got to do with no nonsense and no BS.
Awesome. Okay. Last question. Very important. Nail salon, hair salon, or spa. You can only pick one to visit for the rest of your life. Which one is it?
Oh, hair salon, I think. I think.
Yeah.
Spa. I mean, spas have hair, so can I?
You want to finagle this?
I want to finagle your question.
There's the loophole. An all-inclusive spa.
Yes. That would be it. Because I'm like, my massages, man, I need those.
Yeah.
As a photographer, you definitely need to take care of yourself and your body. And we all do, really. And so I'm like, oh man, giving it the massage would be really rough, but also not having my hair done. I don't know about that.
Yeah. No, I feel you.
As a
It's a
blonde.
it's a
Yeah.
really hard question. Totally.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, Nichole. Well, before we wrap up, please tell our listeners where they can find you, learn more about you, and we will link that awesome freebie that you mentioned in our show notes as well as that blog post. But tell our listeners where they can access you.
Absolutely. Nichole, MCH Photography, anywhere, like everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, website. It's all NICH. I have an H in my name. OLE, MCH Photography. Instagram, yeah, all the places.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Marissa, for having me. This was wonderful.